By all means, by all means, by
Uh,
all means.
Welcome everyone to the NERC Executive Board session, and I'd like to begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United
United
States
States of America, and to the
republic
republic
for which it
for which
stands,
stands
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty.
liberty and justice for all.
God bless America. And with that,
Amen.
we'll ask Attorney David Hallenbeck if he would tell us of new appointments to the commission. David, are you on?
Well, he may not have come back. I
I
can,
know he has an early flight, but I think
yeah, he wasn't leaving until 10:30. I think he just stepped
Okay.
away. I can jump in to say that there are no appointments to the commission side.
okay, in that case, we'll move right along. If we may have a roll call with the approval of minutes for July 15th, 2021 on pages 1 to 3. Wait a couple of seconds to see if anybody has any questions, additions, deletions, corrections.
No,
Okay, hearing none, then I request approval of the minutes, the roll call vote, so that we'll also include that as our attendance. Meredith is taking.
I will be taking,
There you
I
go.
will be taking roll call. I didn't know if you were going to take a motion in a second first.
Okay,
I'll be-
well,
move the approval.
let's do a motion and then a second, and then we'll ask for any discussion.
Yeah, I'll move the approval.
Okay, we have a motion.
And I'm
You have
sorry,
a
was
motion.
Greg Stinson the
Yeah.
second?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's okay,
was
thank
Greg.
you.
Yep.
But I'll take a roll call. I will begin with the executive board members first, since this is an executive board meeting, and then continue with the full commission. Tom Dermody,
Yes.
Bill Emerson,
Yes.
Richard Hardaway. Richard Hardaway,
I think you're on mute, Richard.
Yes.
okay, thank you. Justin Keel,
Yes.
thank you. Sue Lynch. Sheila Matias. Wendy Miss,
Yes.
thank you. Jim Pressel. Greg Stinson,
Yes.
thank you. Jim Tunn,
Present.
thank you. George Topple,
Yes.
thank you. Michael Griffin. Okay, we do have quorum. We have 8 executive members in attendance. Okay, I will continue with the rest of the roll call. Kyle Allen, Dwayne Arndt, Jeanette Baps, Janet Beck, Jeff Benson,
Here?
thank you. Jim Biggs, Kevin Brightsky,
Here.
thank you. Charlie Brown, Bill Carroll, Robert Carnahan,
Here.
thank you. Anthony Copeland, Jocelyn Denham,
Here.
thank you. John Derwinski,
Here.
thank you. Dinah Dumbrus,
Here. Present.
thank you. Denise Ebert, Robert Forster, Tony Hendricks, Eric Hall, Jack Geralds, Andrew Kiris, Robert LeMay, Tom McDermott, Lori Mercer, Mike Mullenhour, Edward Morales, Matt Murphy, Dwayne Perry, David Peeler, Bob Paparad, Jerome Prince,
Here.
thank you. Rick Rifa, Tom Schmidt, Brian Snedcore, Steve Spebar, Gerald Swets.
Here.
Thank you. Sharon Zuido, Mary Tanis, John Yelkich. That concludes roll call.
If I could, I know sometimes it's hard to get the mutes off fast enough to respond. Can we just, if anybody was present and wasn't able to indicate so either on the executive board or the commission, just want to give a chance to.
Just noticed Mayor Sue Lynch has had indicated her approval and she's on board.
Great, thank you. That
Welcome.
gives us 9. Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. The next agenda item is public comment for the current agenda items. Has there anyone signed up? Hearing none, then we'll move on to the report of the chair. Essentially, I'll keep mine brief. We will be doing some consent agenda later on. So if you have anything that needs to be exempted from the consent agenda item vote, please let us know that, any of the executive board members. And I want to thank all the commissioners in attendance. The executive board has a quorum. And I also like to say that we will be joining the South Shore Clean Cities on Tuesday to work with them in their event on next Tuesday. And some of the employees will be able to attend too. So I'm very happy for that. Next agenda item, that concludes my report, and I'll let Ty fill in all the blanks so that we keep this brief and keep it moving.
Well,
Aye.
thank you.
George, this is Dave. I'm sorry, my clock must be running slow.
Oh, well, welcome.
And item number 2 is my opportunity to talk this morning. So I want to have an opportunity to do
Would you
that.
please take it away, Mr. Hollenbeck?
And I apologize. I thought I was right on time. I'm being facetious. The answer is we have not received any new appointment letters since our last convening of this body. So we have no new appointments to welcome. But for the record and an opportunity to talk, I wanted to make sure that the record reflected that the staff and I are doing our due diligence by watching these authority letters coming in, and there haven't been any since the last meeting. And again, I apologize for my late arrival.
Apologies.
And
duly
I
accepted.
figured if there was anybody I could interrupt, it would be Ty.
Well, Dave, I already handled that for you, but you know,
Oh, okay.
it's always good to give you your moment. So I'm
Well,
glad.
thank you.
Thanks. Have a safe trip later. Dave is going to have to slip out at some point during the meeting. So, and like he said in the earlier, it will be nothing personal. So he's already said it in advance. So thank you, Mr. Chair. I've only really got 2 main items again to keep the meeting moving for the other items on here. The first is a big one in the operation of NERPC, which is to introduce our Director of Transportation, who has been here since the end of July, but we haven't had an opportunity to introduce him to the full commission, or excuse me, the executive board yet. So I want to introduce Thomas Dow. Thomas, if you're able to say hello, that would be great.
Good morning. Thank you for the kind words, Ty. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to working with everybody on the call over the coming months and years. So thank you for welcoming me.
Thomas really has hit the ground running. I had the pleasure of working with Thomas during my time in Kansas and was really happy that he was interested in coming to Northwest Indiana. So he's adapted really well to this environment. We're glad to have him on board. Thomas, I wonder if you just want to give just a quick, I know you've been thinking a lot about our next plan update, which is a ways off, but he's already trying to strategize for that. And I just wondered if you wanted to say a quick sentence or 2 about that for everybody.
Sure. Under federal law, because we're a non-attainment area for air quality purposes, we have to update our regional long-range transportation plan every 4 years. We last adopted it or updated it in May 2 years ago. So we've got to finish in about 22 months. And my experience, I worked for the Kansas Department of Transportation for a long time, as Ty had said. And my experience working with the MPOs is that the time tends to get away from you pretty quickly. And so I wanted to make sure that we were thinking about the process. And so I've started developing a preliminary schedule, and I think we'll be sharing that in more details with you at your next meeting, hopefully. And so I'm looking forward to engaging on that major MPO work product with all the members of the commission and the board. So I don't know how much more detail you want me to go into, Ty. You said keep it brief.
I think that's great. Unless anybody has, I think they want to ask about that. We'll be laying out the whole groundwork for that so that we get that done on time. So again, the last one we did was NWI 2050 in 2019. So it is time to start the update for that.
And it is a good time as well, because the decennial census numbers are coming out as well. So I think that we will be well positioned to have really good demographic information about our region for this next iteration of the plan. So timing's great right now.
Tom, on behalf of the executive board and the full commission, I'd like to welcome you officially and in person next Tuesday. I look forward to meeting you.
Okay, thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Okay, Ty?
Great, thanks so much. And then the second big item there on the agenda is one of the things that Thomas helped us do is take a look with staff at, as it was a great segue, Thomas just mentioned the decennial census numbers coming out. Staff has put together a brief just overview of those shifts in our region so that you can get a sense of what the census data is telling us across the NERC region. So I'm going to hand it over to Scott and Peter to take you through a quick overview of the initial census results.
Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Peter Kimball here, and we got to go ahead and look at the first bit of census information that was released. This information was released a couple weeks ago in an FTP file format, and it is up to date in the easy access portal that they have online. So I'll let Scott go ahead and take it away with initial numbers.
I'll just go over briefly the bottom line numbers here for how the 2020 population compared with 2010 in the census. So clearly, as you can see at the bottom line, the NERC region, that's Lake, Porter, and LaPorte counties, grew collectively from 771,815 to 784,332, or a growth of 12,517 people, or 1.6%. And even better, all three counties experienced growth, as you can see above that row. Porter County clearly grew by the most, by 5.4%, but LaPorte County still grew by 0.9%, and Lake County grew by 0.5%. Now we'll look at how our region compared to other nearby regions. So as you see in this table, the NERC region at the bottom grew by 1.6%. That compared very much identically with the Chicago area in Illinois, who grew by 1.7%. So just across the border, they grew by slightly more than the NERC region here in Northwest Indiana. However, we trailed behind the South Bend area, which grew by 3%, and the Indianapolis area, a whopping 13.3% growth from 2010 to 2020. However, we did grow faster than Southwest Michigan, which actually experienced a 1.4% population decline from 2010 to 2020.
So I've put together a couple of visualizations here that show our change from 2000 to 2010 to 2020, each with the year's actual census data, not one of the survey estimates. This one shows where exactly our populations are concentrated. One dot is 200 people, and those are randomly spread throughout the census tract, but it shows you a bit about where the density is. Moving on, we have another slide here. As the census tracts grow and darken, the population is increasing. This again is 2000, 2010, and 2020. And the thing that's notable about this graphic is you can kind of see as those census tracts get darker, they split over the years. So we do have growth that's big enough to add more census tracts to our region. And then I've created a visualization here on the population change throughout the municipalities that Scott will talk a little bit about. This visualization is just a quick, if it's green, there was growth. If it's yellow, orange, or red, there was a slight decrease in the population. So getting into the specific numbers by our municipalities.
So here we can see the double stacked bar chart of all of the 41 municipalities in the NERC region in 2010, which is the blue charts, and the 2020, which is the orange charts. As you can see, clearly the biggest municipalities in our region by population are still Gary and Hammond. Both of those experienced declines, however, since 2010. Gary experienced a much greater decline than Hammond experienced. So now Hammond is clearly the largest municipality in our region, still a little under 80,000 people, but now Gary is under 70,000 people. And as you can see, some of these smaller communities did grow by quite a bit. So Crown Point grew by the most, and then St. John. So you can see those two municipalities. Clearly the orange is a lot taller than the blue. So looking at population density, this is the population divided by the municipality's land area. So what's interesting now is that Highland has now overtaken Hammond as the most densely populated municipality in our region. Hammond is still neck and neck. Those are the two most densely populated municipalities. And then clearly Munster, New Chicago, Dyer, and Whiting are all still very, very densely populated compared to some of the other municipalities at over 2,500 people per square mile. But clearly the main trend here is that the most densely populated communities are those that are predominantly residential, that don't have as much perhaps industrial and commercial land area, and also more so at the northern portion of our region.
So moving on, we were also given numbers on housing units. Right here is a map of housing units by census tract. As we move along with our analysis, we'll look into the previous years and the estimates and try to align how our housing compares as we go back and compensate for the added census tracts within our region. I've also provided a map with minority areas. This looks fairly similar to our 2010 map. And this would be one component that plays into looking at our EJ areas as we go ahead and update those. As census data is released, we'll have more and more of the demographics that play into us identifying our EJ areas to update those. And finally, I wanted to call out just a quick look at where we gained census tracts. These blue lines show where census tracts that were designated in 2010 have actually split because of our population increases in the region. So as far as response rate goes, we're only given that data at the state level at this point in time. For 2020, Indiana does have a 70.3% response rate, which is better than the national average. And this also is a little bit higher than our 69.6% response rate that the state had in 2010. So just a little more info. As I mentioned, that census data that we presented today is available in a more user-friendly format on the website. But of course, you can always contact myself or Scott to provide you any census-related information. And then this presentation has been posted. It is on our Regional Data and Maps homepage. So if there's any questions, we can take those.
Yes, this is Bob Carnahan.
Mhm.
We went from 11,560 to 14,106, which we believe they didn't get us completely counted. I called the United States Census Bureau, and they said the final numbers won't be out until September 30th. And I talked with our town attorney last night, and we're considering trying to maybe do an appeal. According to the Times newspaper article, we increased by 22%, but the last track I had, we only had 76% people fill out our census forms, and that's 4% lower than 2010. So we're a little concerned about the numbers.
Thank you for your comment, Bob. I did just note that Cedar Lake, in terms of our 41 municipalities, actually ranked in fourth for population growth from 2010 to 2020, behind only Crown Point, St. John, and Winfield. So just to let you know. But yes, thank you for the information, and we can help you out how we can.
All right, thank you very much.
Bob, I was going to comment that the fact that Indiana's response rate is above the national average, I was going to attribute that single-handedly to you.
Well, I tried to spread the word all over Northwest Indiana and across the state because I didn't want to lose the United States congressman, which we did not lose. We still have 9.
Well, congratulations.
And Bob, thank you. You certainly are a tremendous advocate for the population census initiative, I would like to call it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
If there's any other questions or comments in relation to this, I just want to thank Peter, give you the opportunity, but that concludes my report. I just want to thank Peter and Scott for all of their work on this. The data continues to come, so we'll know more and more, but since there was information out, I wanted to be able to give that overview to you all so you can start seeing the changes here. And if there's anything to glean from all of that, it's that this region continues to be a very dynamic one. And I think that's obvious through their presentation. So thank you guys. I really appreciate the work on this.
Okay, does that conclude your report?
It does. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is the Environmental Management Policy Committee with Bill Emerson. Bill, would you like to make a presentation?
Sure. Hey, good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to all the commissioners and guests we have today. The Environmental Management Policy Committee met on September 2nd. We had a great meeting, packed with information for sure. We had a presentation from Dan Robinson with the Solar United Neighbors Co-op, which was great. They're an organization helping residents and others go solar with kind of buying power of a co-op. So it's really a great organization if anyone's interested. And then the bulk of our meeting was analyzing the Northwest Indiana Regional Greenhouse Gas Inventory results and project. So we had Alec Thies and Kathy Sipple present that. And Kathy is good enough to join us today as well to give everyone an update at the full commission, executive board and everyone who's present. So I'll turn it over to Kathy Luther and Kathy Sipple, the Kathys, to kind of go over that.
Thank you, Bill. Let me get my Kathy and I negotiated that I will be primarily going through a hopefully very brief overview, but she's also available to answer questions. She's really been the person that did a lot of heavy lifting on this project, so and worked
Definitely
very hard to make it happen.
Effort. She's underselling herself.
So many of you know, because we took action on this last year, 19, to apply to the IU Environmental Resiliency Institute for assistance with doing a greenhouse gas emission. We were successful in receiving 2 interns from Indiana University. And it's the first regional greenhouse gas inventory in Indiana and one of very few across the country. And by working cooperatively, we think we had tremendous cost savings for the communities that participated in this. And certainly NERPC as an organization had cost savings. We could not have done this without the communities that committed to helping us pay for the interns and the cost. So in the fall of 2020, 14 jurisdictions committed, including all 3 counties and 11 cities and towns. Gary and Michigan City had previously done an inventory, which we chose the same base year as them, which will enable this really to be regional in scope going forward. We'll all be talking on the same year. So the team, we had 2 interns from Indiana University, Alec and Angelica, and then we had an additional 3 interns that Earth Charter Indiana, whom Kathy works for, brought on board from the region because IU couldn't afford to give us as many interns as we needed for such a huge response from the communities. And they worked really hard to follow the global protocol for community emission, climate emissions, carbon emissions. I don't know what the GPC stands for. They followed the GPC, global. I always forget. Too many acronyms. And then on the staff, I gave some support. Joe Exel gave some support. Scott Weber did the transportation modeling, and Peter helped with data as well. And Kathy Sipple managed the interns from a day-to-day basis. And the Environmental Institute staff and ICLEI also provided us a lot of technical support. So what happened? So our regional emissions in 2017 were 39 million tons, almost 40 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. Not unexpected, the huge majority was from industrial. We have a high energy demand industrial sector, followed secondly by transportation and mobile sources. The other thing I thought was, and third, residential energy at 8 million tons. Very interesting that the agriculture, forest, and open space sector reduced our total by 300,000 tons. So what does that really mean? We kind of put this is if you take the region total and then 84% is the industrial, kind of take that out, you're left with all the other sectors. And going forward, we're going to focus more on those other sectors because those are things we can maybe have control over. The industries are going to do their thing as they're regulated or have market forces that encourage them to save energy. But, you know, we make steel and that's energy intensive activity. So, and then I think I made, yep. So if you take out that big industrial piece and break it more down, you see that as a region, 74% of our emissions are from transportation and mobile sources. 12% is from residential energy use, and 6% is from, why did that come out negative? 6% is from commercial energy use, and 5% is from solid waste management. And that's a 6.6 million total tons of CO2 emitted from pretty much daily activity in our region. So, I wanted to back up and say, this is for the region as a total. For the municipalities that and jurisdictions that followed through on their commitment, we will have a report for each of them. Most of the municipalities, it looks like most of their emissions will be from transportation, residential, and commercial energy in different, some of them are looking like, you know, almost equal thirds. Some of the communities, I think it was Cedar Lake, had maybe 60% of it in residential energy. So, and then we'll talk to each community about where their biggest sources are to see what makes sense for them. So what are our next steps with this? Again, we're gonna, I want to go back through the full report and make sure everything, quality review. We are going to meet individually with the communities that did commit to the project to talk about their results and gauge their interest in participating in a climate action plan development. We hope to apply again to the IU environmental resilience application for the next stage, which is planning. And then we hope to create a regional advisory group for the project going forward. We will have a lot of help from ICLEI. They're really excited about this. They will help us generate science-based emission targets for the region by 2030. And then what I'd like to do is work together as a region to come up with a suite of high impact actions. What are the things that would have the most impact? And then kind of a framework to that any local community that wants to do local climate action planning will have a lot of the legwork done ahead of time. And then we will, going forward, work with any community that's interested in pursuing that, do some training workshops and community engagement.
Maps, he said to go on.
I think, yep, I did not put the contact slide, but that, I don't know if anyone has any questions or if Kathy wants to add anything.
Well, I just wanted to say, some people are asking, what can we do right now? And I'll drop some links in chat that are some programs that are free and low cost for the people who want to get moving on to something right now. And Kathy brought up an idea to put together a steering committee to guide us through this application process. Last year, it was kind of she and I, and we think it would really benefit from multi-stakeholder participation. So if anybody feels called to do that, we'd love to hear from you. And also, I just want to put out a feeler. I know we have Portage and Hammond represented, and just seeing those statistics for the populations again, they're the two really cities of big size that we didn't have included. So if there's any way we can use some of our remaining resources to help you support, kind of a last minute effort, I'd love to talk to Portage or Hammond to see if we have one remaining part-time intern through the end of the year. And I think that would be an excellent way to utilize some of her time if there's interest. So please reach out to Kathy or myself. And then just a few programs, if I can quickly mention them. I know everybody knows South Shore Clean Cities. Lori's on the call. They've already got great programs you're aware of. A couple other things you may not know about is SWIFT, Sustainable Wastewater Infrastructure of the Future Initiative, that's offered by DOE. That's completely free for communities to participate in. I'll drop that link in chat. And then there's Clean Communities Challenge, sponsored by IDEM. So those are just a few examples that we can start supporting and promoting. And then I love that the Solar United Neighbors was already mentioned. That was another one and I wanted to throw out there. So that's really all I've got. I know our time is pretty short on the agenda, so I'll go ahead and close. I just want to say a big thank you to all of you and to Kathy Luther and the whole team who participated. I know they have a lot on their plate, but they really stepped up and provided the technical support for these interns. And I was very glad to do the other part that I was, more capable to do. So really big thank you for taking that on.
Thank you. And if there aren't any questions, I guess we're back to the agenda. Oh, and I just looked in the chat. We can make presentations available. I'd like to, again, do one-on-one with the communities that participated and have a special presentation for each of you in a meeting.
Thank you, guys. I think if have you stop sharing your screen, and Mr. Sheriff.
Sorry.
George, I think you're still on mute.
Did I stop? I think I stopped. Oh,
Thank
stop.
you. Next, we have the consent agenda items. Now, this is done to save time so that we vote one time for all the items on the consent agenda. However, anyone objects to having these included on the agenda, you have the right to let us know now. And again, just before the vote, we'll have another opportunity. So is there any objection to keeping this group as a consent agenda? That would be all the items under 8.0, 8.1, 8.2, and 3. And moving right along, we'll go, hearing no objections, we'll move on and begin to start with Finance and Personnel Committee. Greg Stinson, 2 resolutions action requested.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The Finance and Personnel Committee met this morning to review the financial reports for June and July of 2021. Also reviewed were bank reconciliations and claims registers for June and July of this year. There are two items for the consent agenda for consideration today. The first is Resolution 21-16, which is a request to the EDA to release the LaPorte County revolving loan fund from certain federal requirements. Dennery Kane will present on this item.
Thank you. The resolution in front of you is an action that would make this request to the EDA to defederalize the LaPorte County only loan program. This would essentially remove certain reporting requirements that are currently NERC's obligation. And so upon passage of this resolution, it would accompany a letter with some specifics about the loan program, as well as the most recent financial report and the most recent single audit. Then at a future date, once the EDA reviews that material, you could expect to receive a sample, an agreement of which a sample is attached in the exhibit that would be the more particular agreement actually making that release. And the LaPorte County Loan Committee had made a recommendation to the Finance and Personnel Committee that the program be defederalized and that for the time being it continue. And the Finance and Personnel Committee is forwarding that same recommendation to the Commission or Executive Board.
Yes, the Finance and Personnel Committee forwards this with a favorable recommendation. Are there any questions? Hearing none, then I guess if I can proceed, Mr. Chair. The second item is the Economic Resiliency Plan, which is seeking authorization for the Executive Director to negotiate and sign this contract. Again, Dennery Kane will present on this item.
Yes, the RFPs came back last Friday. There were 3 that were received. There were 2 top choices. Interviews were conducted with Camoin Associates out of Saratoga Springs, New York, and TIP Strategies out of Austin, Texas. And the eventual recommendation was to hire TIP Strategies. So this request is to authorize the Executive Director to negotiate the final terms of that contract in coordination with NERC's attorney, and also allow him to execute the final contract on behalf of the Commission in an amount not to exceed $112,000. That is also the sum that's available in the grant. And for your background, TIP Strategies happens to be the consultant that was involved most recently in the forum's Ignite the Region plan. And both firms did a very good job of responding to the request for proposal, but TIP Strategy was the ultimate recommendation.
The Finance and Personnel Committee forwards this to the Executive Board with a favorable recommendation. The Finance and Personnel Committee will be meeting again in October to consider the preliminary budget. And that concludes my report.
Okay, sorry about that. Those 2 items will be included in the consent agenda unless there is objection. Moving on to 8.2, Technical Planning Committee, Mr. Kevin Brightsky, could you please provide the information for your committee?
Thank you, Chairman Tovol, and good morning to everybody. The Technical Planning Committee met on Tuesday, September 14th, that was this week, and has forwarded Resolution 2117 with a favorable recommendation for consideration in the Executive Board's consent agenda today. Staff will now present this action.
Thank you, Commissioner Brightsky. Amendment number 22-02 to the 2022 to 2026 Transportation Improvement Program was released for a 21-day public comment period, which began on August 19th and ended on September 9th. The amendments were made available at NERC's website, and no comments for the public were received during this comment period on the proposed projects in the amendment. NERC did not receive any technical comments from the Interagency Consultation Group. That is a group of NDOT, IDEM, Federal Highway, FTA that reviews for air quality and air quality conformity and regionally significant projects. All projects were found to be exempt from that any findings. So, and that's the public comment report. So moving on, amendment number 2 to the 2022 to 2026 TIP. NERC is still awaiting approval from the Federal Highway and Federal Transit Administration on the 2022 to 2026 State Transportation Improvement Program, and also therefore the TIP. So we still need to move forward and amend the projects in the TIP as needed. As a little bit of background, we are kind of operating in a little bit of a gray area where we're still looking, the feds are still looking at our 20 to 24 TIP, but the state has accepted our 22 to 26 TIP. So basically what this means is we've got to make sure that anything in 22 and 23 has been amended into the 20 to 24 TIP, and that everything is correct in that TIP. So some of the projects in amendment number 1 and some of the projects in amendment number 2 do cover that. But moving on, amendment number 2 contains the following for fiscal years 22, 23, 24, and 25. There's 7 new projects for NDOT, and those project breakdowns are: there's 1 bridge replacement, 4 railroad crossing replacements, 1 roadway resurface safety, and 1 lighting project. The city of East Chicago had 1 project deleted. That was the intersection improvement. Obert is accelerating an intersection improvement into fiscal year 2022. LaPorte is adding a design phase to one of their projects. It's a road rehab. They're seeking funding for the PE phase. Portage is adding a new project, which is road reconstruction. And Winfield has moved the funds from one of their projects from the design phase to the right-of-way phase, and that's intersection improvement. Going back to the Portage project, this is on Central Avenue. This project is already in the TIP, but has been broken into 3 different phases in 22 and 23. And in order to keep everything straight, what we've done is we've gone in and created a new project for construction only and removed some of the funds from another DES number to the construction phase. And the initial DES number is now just a tracking number. Are there any questions or comments? That's all I have.
Hearing no questions or comments, Mr. Chairman, the next meeting of Technical Planning Committee will be on Tuesday, October 12th, 2021. More information will be available no later than a week before the next meeting as to whether it's going to be in person or virtual. This concludes our report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brightsky. Those 2 items will be included in the consent agenda. If anyone has any objections, let us know before the vote. Moving right along, the next item is the Legislative Committee with Mr. Justin Keel. Justin, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Legislative Committee met last Tuesday for its, I would call it a kickoff meeting for this upcoming legislative session. Our primary topic for that meeting was discussion about the proposed Calumet National Heritage Area. Joining us today with a brief presentation are Mark Bowman and Gary Johnson, and I'll turn it over to them for a brief presentation about this initiative.
There you go. Perfect. Gary, you're on mute, just to let you know.
Okay, there we are. Thank you very much, Ty. And Justin, thank you very much for the introduction, and thanks to both you and Ty for helping us be present for this meeting this morning for consideration of the resolution. I'm Gary Johnson, a director in Indiana, vice president of the Calumet Heritage Partnership. And joining me this morning is Mark Bowman. Mark, could you provide a few words of introduction?
I'm on the board of Calumet Heritage Partnership with Gary, and I am the Chicago Region Program Director at the Field Museum. And this is a project that the museum has very much been part of for quite a while, working with many local partners in Northwest Indiana.
So heritage areas are places of national significance. They need to tell stories of where they are. They're lived in spaces, and they do preservation and interpretation of heritage assets. In developing the plans for our heritage area, there were three big themes that were identified that are shown on the screen. And I think they capture much of the history of our region very concisely. And so as we think about telling future stories of our region, they would likely be built mostly around these themes. As you'll see, there are many resources throughout our region and into Illinois. This is a bi-state activity that roughly extends from the Pullman National Monument through the Indiana Dunes National Park. And I think one of the key things on this map, where we're showing the various organizations with whom we've worked and who have heritage assets that would serve as gateways into the heritage area. And of course, in addition to these physical places, we would also have a website that told the story of the Calumet for people across the country to access. And here's a list of some of those organizations. And I think for the purposes of this group, that the relationship to virtually every community within Northwest Indiana is an important consideration.
Gary, could I just jump in to say that list of Calumet Curators organizations has put together an exhibit currently at the Gary Public Library and coming next year to the Porter County Museum. And then all the resources of all of these curators is joined with Field Museum's work, and there will be an exhibit at the Field Museum in November 22 about the Calumet region.
And if I remember correctly, the Field Museum has something like 1.8 million visitors per year that could potentially see this exhibit about the Calumet.
Right.
Yeah. So right now we have an operating heritage area. So what are the advantages of pursuing national designation? And I think one of the ways to look at it is the impact that the former National Lakeshore has had as its status was elevated into a national park. And one of the major ones, of course, is increased attendance. And there's a quote there from Paul Labovitz. And I think maybe the key phrase there is the name seems to resonate. And we think that designating the Calumet Heritage Area as a national organization would have many of the same advantages. I think that the heritage area, because of its bi-state nature, supports the integration of Northwest Indiana into the metropolitan economy. And of course, there are some projects there in which obviously NERC has been instrumental. And in addition to the projects that are mentioned, I think we are constantly building bi-state partnerships that help that integration. And we think that as we became a national heritage area, it would help the heritage area to attract greater economic resources, to assure sustainability, and to expand programming. There is a modest level of federal funding that the national heritage areas enjoy, which has to be matched locally, but basically they are locally managed, and local people are responsible for creating sustainability, which is one of the distinctions between heritage areas and national parks, which are basically funded by the National Park Service. That's not the situation with heritage areas. So the increased branding linkage to national, we believe would help us do that. And as you'll see on the next slide, there's a proven economic impact and a high return on investment. There have been a lot of economic impact studies done by organizations looking at heritage areas in general, and a few examples of specific heritage area studies that I've put on the slide. One that I'll mention, the 2020 National Park Service economic impact studies. At that point, there were 55 national heritage areas. By the way, none of those are in Indiana, so we would be the first. And those heritage areas created $88.5 million in cash and in-kind support, with an investment of about $21 million total in the Heritage Area Partnership Program. So there's at least a 4-to-1 leverage of federal money into local money as a result of that. And then as we look back a little further, and this was the most recent one I could find, when there were 49 heritage areas in 2013, there was a study then that indicated that they added about $12.9 billion to the nation's economy and created 148,000 jobs. And 99% of that was attributed to increased tourism and visitation. Looking at a couple of specific heritage areas, one that is very close to us in terms of its soul, if you will, is Rivers of Steel, which is in an urban industrial setting. And they did a study in 2020, which indicated $92 million of economic impact. And there's a quote there from Senator Bob Casey that I think is very supportive of the idea of leveraging federal funds to create significant economic impact through national heritage areas. One of the heritage areas that's very close to us, which covers a large part of central Illinois, is the Abraham Lincoln National Heritage Area. And they did a study in 2017, which shows, as you see there, a large amount of economic impact, in slightly over $250 million and significant jobs created. So as we think about the National Heritage Area and how it relates to other economic development objectives, it seems that it aligns closely with your 2050 plan, thinking specifically of the Proximity to Chicago initiative and the people and culture mentions in your plan. And of course, it's complementary to the designation as an economic development district. And the heritage area is an objective of the Ignite the Region placemaking pillar. And it is also mentioned in the Cook County, Illinois South Suburban Growth Initiative. So we think there's broad regional support and recognition of the importance of the heritage area, and that integrates very well into the existing economic development plans. So in closing, I would just like to once again say thank you to Justin and to Ty, to the Legislative Committee, and of course to you this morning for your time and attention. Mark, before we completely sign off, did I miss something that you'd like to fill in?
Two very quick things. Labor Day, the new Pullman National Monument Visitors Center opened in Illinois. They project a growth from 30 to 300,000 visitors a year. At that monument and at the new Chicago Park District Ford Calumet Environmental Center, Northwest Indiana is on the map. These are Chicago-based gateways to Northwest Indiana. I wanted to make that point. Secondly, on placemaking, Calumet Heritage Partnership has an annual conference, October 12th through 14th. The theme this year is regional placemaking, and it's based out of IUN. And I think we'll be sure that you have opportunity to join that conference virtually, of course, these days. Thanks for your time, everybody.
Thank you both. Is there any questions for Mark or Gary? If not, we really appreciate your presentation and all the work that you put into this initiative. Resolution 21-18 does come with a favorable recommendation from the Legislative Committee. And with that, that concludes my report.
Hey, thank you, Justin, very much. And thank you, Gary and Mark, for your presentation. Very interesting and informative. That concludes the total number of actions requested for approval, all with favorable recommendations for the consent agenda. Are there any objections to voting on all items for the consent agenda? Hearing none, we will take the roll call, please. This is for approval of all consent agenda items.
Okay, I'll be taking a roll call of the executive board. Tom Dermody,
Yes.
Bill Emerson,
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Richard Hardaway,
Yes.
thank you. Justin Keel,
Yes.
thank you. Sue Lynch, Sheila Matias, Wendy Miss,
Yes.
thank you. Jim Pressel, Greg Stinson,
Yes.
Jim Tunn,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes.
George Topple,
Yes.
Michael Griffin. That concludes roll call with 8 voting yes.
Okay, thank you very much. That approval of all those items. And we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is Dennery Kane Economic Development District for NERC.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just give a brief overview. We're continuing to have discussions with interested parties that want to learn more about EDA grant funding. So I continue to encourage you to contact me so we can arrange those conversations with our economic development representative. We have a new hire that is Matthew Paskesh, who is the economic development specialist, and he has been working on outreach to approximately 10 parties regarding the Recover Northwest Indiana Revolving Loan Fund and assisting people with questions and applications and eligibility. NERC is also investigating the Build Back Better Regional Challenge to see if there might be a grant application associated with that EDA grant. We're looking forward to working on the Economic Resiliency Plan. You can expect to hear more about that in the very near future. There'll be a large survey effort that will be undertaken, and probably many of you will be contacted for input regarding the Economic Resiliency Plan. But we first need to get a contract signed. So, and that's just a brief snapshot.
Does that conclude your report?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Next on the agenda is NDOT's Matt Deachley, LaPorte District Deputy Commissioner. And Matt, after the meeting, could you hang on for a second so I could have a moment with you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Good morning,
Right
everybody. So just a few quick things I wanted to make sure everyone was aware of. I want to talk about Restore 94 2.0, which we've been working a lot on 94 this year. This construction season, we're on good schedule. We should be wrapping up everything by the end of October as we originally planned. So good news there. I know it's been kind of a challenge for some folks, but we have seen traffic moving pretty well through most of those construction zones. So overall, pretty good stuff. Coming up next year, we don't have a whole lot of relief in sight, big surprise. We're gonna have a lot of projects on the Borman in 2022 as well, but we are planning to do traffic patterns very similar to this year where we're avoiding those lane closures, but we're utilizing traffic shifts to keep things moving and make sure it's a little safer than it could be. So more to come next year. As everyone else in the locals are probably doing as well, we're working on winter prep. I'm actually in the Gary sub-district today. We're doing truck inspections for winter prep and making sure we're ready to go when the snow starts flying, which, as we all know, Northwest Indiana could be tomorrow. Hopefully not though. But we are ready with salt. We are doing our training with our employees, kind of retraining to make sure everyone's ready to roll. And we also, if you know of anyone who's interested, we have a statewide job fair starting September 30th. So more to come on times and locations. Our Facebook page is a great place to look for that. But if you'd like more information, reach out to me. I did want to also mention the Borman-Tismo project. I think a lot of you have probably heard about this. Some folks have described it as hard shoulder running, but that's not necessarily the case, what we're for sure going to be doing. But essentially, NDOT is working on, we're really in the infancy right now, but we're working on intelligent transportation systems solutions along I-94 between the Dan Ryan in Illinois and I-65. So what we're looking at is some options to help hopefully eliminate congestion and increase safety. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of room. We don't have the space to spread out and add more lanes necessarily. So we are coming up with different solutions for that. This is our Pell study. It's actually NDOT's first Pell study right now. So this is something we're working on. We've done some public involvement meetings already over the last couple of months, and we have more coming next month. So more to come. But as you look around and start hearing things about our Flex Road, that's what we're calling it. So these solutions, whatever they end up being, will be branded as Flex Road with our slogan as less stop, more go. So lots more to come on this. I'm sure you guys have lots of questions as we move along in this process, but we're still pretty early on. Right now, we're looking at it being about a $30 million project, and we're looking at construction in 2024. But what that looks like still is a lot to be determined. So as you have questions, let me know, but I'll be keeping this group updated as well. The very last thing I have is a public hearing. I just want to make you aware, Wednesday, October 6th, we're doing a public hearing for a proposed roundabout in Hobart. That's at 51 and 130. This is something that's been in the works for quite some time, so a lot of folks in this area are aware of this. But we do have an open house at 5 p.m. In the City of Hobart Community Center on October 6th. So more to come on that. That's all I've got. I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any. If not, then George, I'll be sticking around for you.
Okay, thanks a million. Appreciate your report. And
I don't have, excuse me, George, I don't have any question. I just wanted to thank Matt again for his continuing interest and cooperation in helping make State Road 49 safer. So thank you, Matt, very much. It's appreciated in Chesterton.
I appreciate your partnership, Commissioner Dunn.
I'm sure all the people in the region appreciate that too. Thank you. But moving on to the next item is other business. Is there any other business to be heard?
If I could, we have Robert Dirks on the call from Federal Highway, and we've had the last this week we've had 2 days of talking with our federal partners. You may recall from past meetings, this is the time that happens once every 4 years where we have an opportunity to talk in depth about our MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization, transportation process. And Robert's been spearheading that from Federal Highway, and I think wanted the opportunity to say a few quick words.
Yes, thank you, Ty. And yes, the U.S. Department of Transportation is required to review the transportation planning processes in TMAs, transportation management areas. Those are MPOs that are 200,000 or greater. We're supposed to review the processes in those areas and certify the planning processes in those areas every 4 years. The last certification was made in December of 2017. And so the next one is due in December of this year. And like Ty said, we met with the NERC staff and many of the transit providers on Monday, 4 hours on Monday and 4 hours on this past Wednesday, yesterday. And so we don't anticipate any problems. I mean, I haven't met yet with the review team yet, which was Federal Transit Administration and then a few people in my office. They're on the review team. I haven't met with them yet to get a debrief or to summarize the meeting and what kind of findings we're expecting to have, but I don't anticipate there being any problems at all with certifying the planning processes in the NERC TMA area. So what will happen now is we will put together a report, and Ty and his staff will have an opportunity to review that report for correctness, and we hope to finalize that report and certify the NERC processes by sometime probably in December of this year. So yeah, so I don't anticipate any problems with that. And also, I wanted to let you know, Ty already knows, but I'm going to be retiring at the end of October, and the person replacing me is Cecilia Tate, or excuse me, Erica Tate, and she is she manages the planning program for Federal Highway in the Indiana Division Office. So she's going to be a very, very good resource for Ty and all of you. So hopefully she can join me in the next meeting, or she can participate and introduce herself at your next meeting. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Robert. I just want to add too, we really did enjoy our conversation over the 2 days that we spent with you all this week, and got some good ideas as well. So we appreciate the partnership. And we technically don't have a commission meeting until November. So I want to wish you well on your retirement, just in front of everybody here. We'll still, of course, be talking throughout October, but congratulations on a long and distinguished career with Federal Highway, and for wrapping things up with us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I might say that this report, during the last 2 days when we met with NERC, I mean, we talked about a lot of things, and there may be some recommendations. There probably will be some recommendations in the report. We talked about a lot of things, like I said, and recommendations are fine. They are the findings that can come out of a report can be corrective actions, recommendations, or commendations. Commendations are attaboys. Corrective actions are you're not doing something legally correct. Okay, and so you need to take care of it as soon as possible. Okay, And then recommendations are just that. They're, they're suggestions. And so I anticipate some of those. I don't know about corrective actions. Definitely we'll have some commendations. So, and like I said before, Ty, you will have an opportunity to review that report before. And I want to, thank you too, and to you and all your staff for all your preparation for, getting ready for this review. I could tell that you've all put a lot of effort into it. So thank you for that. And also thank you for your kind words about my retirement. I've been with Federal Highway now for my whole career. So 33 years. So yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And on behalf of the full commission, I'm sure we extend our appreciation for your service and what you've done to help us, and have a wonderful retirement. God bless you. And
thank you.
Wish you well. Ty, thank you. Do we have any announcements? Bob?
Yes, the Lake County Visitors Authority is going to hold the Rose Award, and that's for hospitality for businesses and workers. And that will be held on September 22nd at the Barbara and Dean White Community Center in Maryville. And it costs $35 to attend. And if you'd like to attend, you can get a hold of the Lake County Visitors Authority, and you have till September 20th if you would like to attend and see why these businesses and workers get these awards.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Any other announcements? Hearing no other announcements, last time for anyone to going once, going twice, 3 times. There being
Move to adjourn.
There being no further business, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you for the motion. That concludes the meeting. Thank you. And Matt,
Thank you.